Hey there, and welcome back to my Factorio 1.0 tutorial series. I'm Xterminator, and thank you for joining me again. And we're back about where we left off. I've handcrafted a few things just in preparation for our build of the Logistic Science Pack here tonight. And before we get started, I do want to just quickly apologize for the bit of a delay in episode from last one to this one and lack of videos today. I had a bunch of time-sensitive errands to run, and I thought I was going to be able to record a lot more than I was, unfortunately. So I'm getting to this tonight, though. I'm super excited, and hopefully tomorrow I can get some additional videos out, or Thursday. And such. There's going to be a lot of content. I said there's going to be, and I do plan to keep up with that promise. So just wanted to let you know what's going on there. But let's work on our Logistic Science Pack. So this one is a fair bit more complicated than the Automation Science Pack. While this one just basically requires two like base ingredients, essentially, you know, copper plate is what I would consider a base ingredient, and gears I suppose are a step up from that, but still in that realm of really just being one craft away from that and such. Whereas the logistic pack requires transport belts and inserters. Belts are slightly more complicated, needing a gear and iron. So these are almost like equivalent of the red science pack themselves in terms of the type of materials. But then the inserter requires the gears, iron, and circuits, which complicates it a bit. Now, since we have gears and circuits on the bus, this makes this process significantly easier. If you do not put these on the bus, or in games like where I do not put them on the bus, things become a fair bit more complicated because we actually have to build them on site, on location. And that's when things get a little bit crazier. Luckily, we don't have to do that here. I'm going to, again, leave some extra space because that is just very smart. Also, keeping in mind we need room for a lane here. For this, again, holding shift while I'm doing this for the ghosts, and then a lane here for the green science output. And much like the red science, we are going to craft based on base rate. So we need 6 of these because we want 1 a second, and they take 6 seconds. Now, someone actually put a comment down in the last episode, which was really helpful and really good to know. They basically just said that you can just take the I'm actually struggling a little bit to remember what they said here, but I think I'm gonna actually pin that comment if you want to go back and look at it. A really easy way to figure out a base rate calculation for how much you want of something. I think it's I think what they maybe did is they said you just take the amount of things you take the crafting time and you divide it by the amount that this outputs. So in this case, it takes 6 seconds and it only outputs 1. So 6 divided by 1 is 6, which means you need 6 of these. I believe that's what they said. I apologize if that's not quite what was said there. I had it in my head when I was going to say it, and then I just completely lost the actual words for it. I apologize for that. But let's set this up. So we have our green science here, and we need some output, of course, for this. So let's go ahead and get this. We just heard our science complete there. That's actually 5. We need now a 6th. Shift right click and shift left click to copy paste there. Heavy armor we've queued up. Okay, good. We had another research ready to go. And now we can work on our belts and our inserters. And these, the setup I do varies a bit from game to game. Again, especially if I have or do not have the circuits and the gears on the bus. But since we do, this does become significantly easier. And I'm going to do something pretty straightforward here. We're going to have one of the things. This will be belt or inserters. It doesn't really matter. And then this will be the other one. And we're going to output here in the middle. And let's go ahead and set this up here, just like this. And there we go. Okay, and then these are going to output, and I am going to actually come out this way And what's going to happen is this is going to wrap around and go up here. Now, you may be wondering why I'm not going up this way. It's because I certainly can. There's actually really no technical reason I can't, but in terms of aesthetics, I think it looks not as good because it would require me to do something like this. So this machine can actually grab from it. If it just goes straight out here, this one can't actually reach it, as you can see. So I'm not really a fan of how this looks, whereas if it just comes out and goes straight through there, it looks a bit better in my opinion. There is something charming about this, I suppose, but I don't really like that myself. So what we're going to do is have this come out here, and we're not actually going to run it quite yet because we want to get our inputs into here first. That is important to make sure those get set up. So this is going to be iron plates and gear wheels, and then of course this needs those same two things. In addition, it also needs electronic circuits. And I can actually have the gear wheels and iron share this belt if I want to here. I'm going to need some of these fast inserters because this does create very quickly half-second craft there. Luckily, it does give us 2 belts per. You can see at the very top there, it says 2 times. So this is really nice. In a lot of cases, for something that crafts as fast, I would say that sharing a belt, like putting iron plate and gear wheel on the same belt, is not really a good move. But the science packs are not actually going to consume this very quickly. They're not going to consume it at anywhere near the rate at which it produces. So this isn't actually going to be bottlenecked very much because after it fills up this belt initially, it's going to be, you know, it's not even going to be working for a lot of the time. So that's why I'm not really worried about it in that case. But normally, I would say for something that is very high throughput like that, maybe not best to share the belt as I'm doing here. So we're going to take this, and we actually want to create a shared belt. So what we're going to do, well, there's actually 2 things. We can create the shared belt on the bus, but here I've actually just very quickly changed my mind. I'd like to create that shared belt here, and there's 2 reasons for that. Number 1, we're going to again take advantage of this side loading concept I did cover in my belt and inserter mechanics standalone tutorial, but this is side loading. Here we did cover it here a little bit, so we're going to take advantage of this concept again, and we're going to create this belt here of iron and gears. And I think I'm actually going to pull this back one, and the reason for that is so we can put a splitter right here. And so this is one reason that we're not doing it on the bus, is because I can have this one line come in, and then this can actually share here between these 2 machines because they actually need the same thing, same ingredients. So that's going to go there. This is going to come down. The other reason is it just gets a little messy combining these things on the bus. It just takes up a lot of room, and I don't really like to do that on my bus just because it really does take all that extra room. So I did this just to kind of make sure I lined things up correctly. So we're going to pull this back. Of course, we don't need that. And then this one here needs to be iron. It could have gone either way. I suppose this could be iron, this could be gears. We may change that here. I think, I mean, it's not, it really doesn't matter. This does need to underground anyway. It really, I don't think it actually matters much in this case. Yeah, if we could not underground this, I would want to change it. But right here, we are going to just simply do this, and we should be fine. And now we'll just continue these on to, you know, kind of recenter ourselves on where all this goes. And we're going to pull this over because remember, these need to go to these inserters. So we now have this combined line, and now we have multiple ways we can play around with this. I'm going to go ahead and run this underneath here. We need to make a few of these, and we're going to bring this on up like that. And we're almost done with green science. I did mention last episode, this is actually going to go together quite quickly because we already got the intermediates done. And like I said last episode, the intermediates are actually a large part of the process a lot of the time for creating things. That's actually going to be the most time-consuming step. So do keep that in mind that, you know, it may seem really time intensive and in a bit of a pain, but once you get these intermediates done, the actual finished product is usually not going to be that hard to set up. Now we have a bit of a situation here. This can be solved very easily by me just moving this over, but I'm not going to on purpose because I want to show you this. So we need to bring circuits in. I'd like to bring circuits in right here. Like have an inserter here for circuits. Obviously, there's many other places I can bring circuits, but again, I am purposely doing it this way to show you this concept. If we do this, we're going to obviously have an issue where we're side loading these onto the circuit belt, which is not at all what we want. For anyone who's played the game for a while, you probably know this already, but for all those new players here, if you turn this belt inwards, you can actually turn it inwards toward the inserter like that. This stops it from side loading, right? Because it's now turned going towards the inserter in the machine rather than continuing horizontally here. And now we can bring this circuit belt in without having to worry about that at all. It did actually take me a while after I started playing the game to realize this mechanic here, and it comes in handy a lot. Again, in just like a normal play, like on my own or on my stream or something, I would simply just move this over or bring the circuits in somewhere else. Or I may do this, but I purposely did it this way here without moving it just to show you this concept. And this can really come in handy because there may be situations where you have a situation like this and you can't move it. So doing this can be quite nice. And of course, if you have things like coming in from two directions, you can do it this way so you're not then side loading onto that one, which you just fixed. So it's very, very nice to be able to do that. But let's bring this on over here, and we're going to use our picker tool, Q there, to pick up the copy of the splitter, essentially. That's going to come over. Now we just simply need some power. I'm so excited to get to a point where we do not have to use these small power poles. They are very annoying and tedious to use, in my opinion, due to their low coverage area. So we're going to hopefully be able to get the medium ones here pretty soon, which have a decently sized larger coverage area. And I think for now we'll just kind of run these here, and there we go. So this is now working. Of course this is now working. We now have a belt with the belt on one side and the inserters on the other, and again, covered in my inserter and belt mechanics tutorial. I go over this, but to mention it here, this will always stay this way because of how inserters work. They will always drop on the far side of the belt from themselves. So this guy is always 100% of the time going to place the belt on this side close to my character. And this one is going to place the inserter on the far side here 100% of the time in this setup, which means I don't have to worry about these getting mixed unless I mess around with something. So there we go. We are now making this green science. Easy as that. Pull this up. We don't quite need that right now. And we can now run this over, and I have actually created a few more labs here right before I started the video, just so we can expand our science consumption rate here. And I'm going to run these this way, so we're going to just connect this up like that. And then we're going to take an underground belt, and we are going to again take advantage of the side loading. I use this a lot in my builds. I just find it very useful. Really nice way to combine things a lot of the time. Run this up here, and then get some inserters here. Now, I think what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to do a little bit of pre-planning. When I build my lab setups, I like to have two belts in the middle, even though this one will remain empty for a while. This is in preparation for the next two science packs we're going to make after these, because you do end up needing actually both these belts as well as some belts on the outside, unless we do some crazy mixing, or as people like to call it, sushi belts, which is something just that we do not need to get into at all. That's way beyond what you guys will really need to do. Personally, I just don't like doing it ever. I personally don't really see the point unless you have some major issues with space and need to save space very, very badly. or for fun. I mean, if you just want to do it for fun, more power to you. But we don't really need to touch on that. It's just basically where you mix all kind of things on one belt to save room without having to do different belts. But here, we are going to plan for this ahead of time instead of having to move these later on. So I just want to pre-plan for that. And there we go. So these guys will work once I select a research. Let's go ahead and get military 2. Getting this piercing rounds magazine is actually going to be very good for us. We won't quite be able to make it yet because we need to make steel, but this has a significant damage boost. This does 8 physical damage opposed to the 5, so it's not quite double, but it is a fair bit better. And it really does make a difference just in the actual combat of things. You'll just almost instantly notice a difference there. So green science is done. What's next on our list here? Well, there's 2 different directions we could take. We could start looking down the path of military science. We are getting there as this is being researched. We could get walls and start working on things that this requires. Or we could work on a hub or a mall, or there's many different names for it. Basically a section of the base that makes all the parts we need to make a base, so inserters and belts and assembling machines and power poles, etc. There are tons of blueprints for these out there, and I honestly don't really like making them myself because I find it extremely tedious, and mine never end up looking very good. But I think for the purpose of this tutorial, we will make one ourselves. Because I just don't think that just importing someone else's blueprint is really going to be appropriate for a series like this. If we look really quickly at military, luckily you can look ahead in the tech tree, even on things you haven't unlocked yet, to kind of see what they give you and what the ingredients are in this stuff. We could start preparing a little bit, knowing that we will need piercing rounds and grenades and walls and stuff like that. But I think working on at least some form of a mall here or a hub would be a good thing to do. Now, I do typically build on one side of the bus, and there's a reason for this. Again, I cover this in my Factorio Fundamentals main bus tutorial, standalone tutorial, but the reason for this basically in short is that when you build on both sides of a bus, unless you do some very, very meticulous planning on how big your bus is going to be and every single thing that's going to be on there and where it's going to be, you risk the situation of not being able to expand your bus any farther in terms of the things you put on it. Because if I build now on this side, I've kind of just blocked myself in, right? So this is something I typically don't like to do. But seeing as we are actually taking up quite a lot of horizontal space here already, and I very much would like to have our military science starting around here somewhere, I think I will actually build my, production area for all these base building things down here, and that may just be the only thing I do. To avoid any, or to hopefully avoid any issues with expansion, I'm going to place this very far away, because again, a rule that is very good to follow in the game is leave a lot of space, examine how much space you've left, and then leave even more. It's space is nearly infinite. Like there is nothing. I mean, sure, maybe I'd hit this water eventually, but I think this does give more than enough room. I know in my head what I need to add. Obviously, as a newer player, you won't have experienced things later into the game, so won't quite know what all you may need to get and add to your bus, or want to add to your bus. But in my head, I know that there's really no way we're going to be taking up more room than this. At least for a very, very, very long time. And at that point, we probably will have transitioned into some other form of base here. So I think just from gut feeling, I'm going to move it a little farther. So first things we want to work on now. A lot of these production, these hubs, these malls, will actually produce gears within them. However, since we do have gears on the bus, I am actually going to just belt over the gears, and that's actually going to save us a bit of hassle. So obviously one thing we would like to make here are transport belts. Another thing that would probably be good, obviously, to make would be the two things that go along with transport belts, being the underground belts and also the splitters. And there we go. Now there's a few different ways we could do this. I think I'm actually this is why this gets a little tricky to make on camera in a tutorial like this, because this does actually take unless I had my own blueprint I paste down, this does actually take a fair bit of planning. But maybe seeing me walk through this will actually help you, even though it may be a little lengthy. Hopefully this will help you either seeing mistakes I make or getting ideas for yourself, or seeing what I'm doing and deciding to go with that. So we know that these both need iron here. So I'm going to run iron just down the middle, and we're going to take advantage of our long-handed inserters and place them in the middle. We're obviously going to need to make an underground belt here so we can place that inserter. But this is something I'm going to do, and then we know that these also need iron. So I'm going to probably do... those need belt as well. Okay, so I'm going to do something like this, perhaps. Automation is going... actually, we may need to get into a little more combat this episode. I wasn't quite expecting that, but it's looking like that might be something we need to do. So let's work on just finishing this section up here. So we know this is going to be iron. I'm placing this inserter here because I know we're going to need an underground with a space in the middle. The space could go anywhere, but I'm going to put it in the middle. And we're going to have that there and have this here. And as you noticed, I don't know if it's needed to explain, but as you noticed, when I placed this, it actually got rid of the above ground belt here. You may have noticed this previously in the playthrough. This is a really nice feature the devs added not too long ago. I mean, it was a while ago, but it's not always been in the game, where it will just kind of auto remove anything in between these, or any just above ground belt. Which makes the process a lot easier, because before they added this, you would have to then pick up the belt that was left between here. So just to let you know that that is a vanilla feature. So then what we're going to do is, well, this is where things get interesting. We could do long-handed inserters, but I'm gonna actually pass this through a chest, and this is something I've not really shown yet. The reason I'm not doing a long-handed inserter, after all, is because this actually requires 4 transport belt, and the long-handed inserter is not particularly quick. It's slightly faster than the normal inserter, but obviously nowhere near as fast as the fast inserter, and it's going to be bottlenecking this a lot by doing a long-handed inserter. So passing it through a chest is, something you can do. Can be passed through, dropped in here by this inserter, and then picked up by this one. However, with this can actually also act as our storage for the belt. So we could set a limit in here, and there would be nothing wrong with that. However, I think I'm gonna grab circuit network, and we're gonna do something with the circuit network. I don't know if it's gonna be this episode. Well, I feel like we're maybe approaching time here. But we're going to do a very simple but very useful thing with the circuit network once we get that unlocked. And actually, since I am then storing these belts in here, I can actually move this closer. I think, yeah, that should be fine. I can actually move this guy here closer, because I was originally going to do this type of setup for this, but since we are doing it right here, this requires 5 transport belt. It's also a high throughput. We could put it either place. We don't need it in both places though. So I'm just going to pass through here. And then this also, of course, does need iron. So I'm going to bring that here. And then one thing that we still have yet to feed in, or prepare to feed in, is the circuits for this one. So we're going to bring the circuits in here. Now, obviously, some of you might be realizing we have one belt machine, and we have two things that require a lot of belt that also create very quickly. Uh, there's no way that this is going to be able to run these two machines constantly, and that is completely fine. I think one really important aspect of the game. Maybe this will be the last big thing we'll cover in this episode. One really important thing I think about the game is to not let yourself be overwhelmed. In by to do that, to not let yourself get overwhelmed, is to realize what needs to produce, or what would be ideal to produce at a full speed and constantly, and what just simply does not need to. And this will take practice, of course, especially if you're new. You don't know what these recipes are like right off the bat. You haven't seen them work. You don't know how many you're going to need necessarily, and that's totally fine. But maybe just by watching videos, or as you play more, you can start to realize, and keeping this in mind, because I could make this huge. I could like fret over it and be like, oh my goodness, well, I need X amount of belt. Okay, so I need 4 belt machines just for one of these, and I need 5 belt machines for the other one, and it just gets so convoluted. And the reality is, I really don't need these two machines to be running 100% of the time. I probably don't even need them to run 50% of the time. And it really just comes down to the fact that, say, compared to a science pack, these are something that ideally you would want running 100% of the time, or near that. Because science is going to be something that you are probably constantly doing throughout the game. There is so much research to unlock through the game. Even after you technically beat the game, if you continue playing, there is science to do after that, if you so choose. So you will almost always be doing science, meaning you will almost always be consuming these science packs at a decent rate. However, with things like belts, now the belt machine itself, you may want to get to a point where it can run a lot. But like the splitters and the underground belts, while you use them throughout most of your game, probably, you're not going to be using them like constantly, if you can see the difference there. I'm not just going to be going, underground, 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 underground for the entirety of the game with no pause, as you would with science pack consumption. So, this is something where if this only makes one, one of these every 5, 6, 8 seconds, that's totally fine, because probably I'm probably only going to be placing like at most maybe like 5 of these a minute on average. It's like so I think that's just a thing that is really good to recognize, and will maybe help relieve some stress and some confusion for you guys, for newer players, or even intermediate players. It's just kind of realizing in the game what needs to be 100% production, or what ideally, nothing needs to be, and things that really just, that actually don't, like, that could very easily support your needs at 15% or 20% production, just because you yourself aren't using them that much. So I think that's the final big thing to cover for this episode. I really very much would like to take out this base. It's making me extremely nervous. And I hope we can do that here. I'm actually going to... Okay, well, hello. A little late now. I guess we're committed. We may run out of ammo in these turrets. In fact, I'm quite confident we will. In fact, I may actually die. This goop hurts a lot. I would prefer not to lose the turrets, though, so we're going to pick those up. And I thought I had some fish. I do, thank goodness. We're just going to go in here, and we're going to just deal with this ourselves. So these guys shoot predictively, which you can dodge these. As you can see, if I continue walking, he would have hit me because he's predicting I'm going to walk there. So kind of moving back and forth, reversing your direction of movement is a decent way to dodge this. Now, if there's a lot of these, you're going to get areas like this, because this stays on the ground for a while. You're going to get areas where you're just not really going to be able to avoid walking on what's already on the ground. That's actually killed me quite a few times before. So do keep that in mind, but in situations like that, it's fairly easy to dodge those, just because they're predictive. They didn't always used to be that way. They used to be homing, if you can believe it or not. They used to basically just home onto you, and there was no escaping it. You were going to get hit. But now it is actually possible to dodge those. And I think this is a good spot to call this episode. I'm just going to actually power this up so we can kind of continue on this smoothly next episode, and the flashing icons stop bothering us here. And there we go. So next episode, we're going to connect this in. We, of course, do need gears for this as well. So the gears can come over anywhere, really. I suppose just on the side would be perfectly fine. And there we go. So we got green science up, which was a pretty big objective in and of itself, despite it being quick. You know, getting a science pack done just in general is a pretty big accomplishment. We got a base wiped out. We got this starting to be built, and hopefully I helped you guys with some concepts, some theories, some ideas. And next episode, like I said, we'll continue them all there a little bit, the hub, and just add a couple more things, maybe some inserters, and that should be good for a while. We should be set for a little bit, and then work our way towards the military science pack, and see what all we need for that and how to get there. Anyway, I think that's going to do it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed and found it helpful, especially if you are new to the game. And if you are new to the game, I hope you're having a fantastic time with it, and welcome. I hope you're finding the content useful. And if you guys did enjoy and find it useful, like is appreciated, because it will help other people find the video, hopefully, and help them out as well. And if you're new to the channel, feel free to subscribe to keep up with all the new content that will be coming out. There will be at least 2 videos out tomorrow. Wednesday, there will be another episode of this, and then there will be a mod spotlight. And if you're new to the channel, that is a quick videos I do each week on Wednesdays, where I show off or spotlight a mod for the game, which is usually pretty interesting. The ones we find, there will especially be interesting now with 1.0, so keep an eye out for those. And I believe that'll do it. Leave any thoughts and feedback below. As always, I really do appreciate your feedback and support and thoughts. And until next time, I look forward to seeing you all, and do take care.